Now that spring's begun, I thought it might be lovely to look at an alphabet of food, one a week, and starting with an apple a day. Does it keep the doctor away? So just looking at all these little sayings and seeing if there's any truth in them. Definitely one of the first questions to ask is, how is the apple grown? Because non-organic apples particularly might be modified with GM. And it's interesting to note that since genetically modified foods entered the food chain, breast cancer cases have doubled. Also, I don't know if you've heard of the Dirty Dozen, which is a count up of pesticide residues in fruit and veg. I think there's the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And non-organic apples are in the Dirty Dozen section. So really good to buy organic, not just for that reason, but also because Frontiers in Microbiology have done a study comparing the amount of bacteria in conventional and organic apples. Now there is the same amount, there's about 1 million bacterial species in each, but I don't know if you can see in this diagram here, the organic apples have more bacterial diversity, which means that, the more bacterial diversity that we have being introduced to the gut, the more different functions they carry out. So we don't need just good bacteria, we need a diverse range of those good bacteria. And also, it's better to eat raw apples than cooked. Obviously, when you cook something like apples, because of the water loss, they can become more sweet, and so it's much better from that perspective to eat them raw. And when they're raw, they are anti-esophageal cancer. They're also apples really high in fibre, which is fantastic again for feeding your gut flora, the other gut flora that aren't necessarily being obtained from the apple. So then an apple does have some vitamin C, about the 7th of that in an orange. But most of the antioxidants that they have, because there's a little bit of vitamin E as well, are in the peel. So it's really important not to peel your apples. And so often when we cook them, they are peeled. But most of your antioxidants there are in the peel. And the peel is anti-breast cancer. How the apples are grown. What about the sugar content in these apples? Now, what they've found is that all these bright, juicy red apples have much higher sugar content than the old traditional green apples that most of us were brought up on. And so from that perspective, again, they're better for blood sugar and therefore better long-term for health, because the less sugar content, the less blood sugar spikes, etc. And all of the old variety green apples are, even better, like your Cox's apples. And the smaller, the wilder, the older, the greener, the better. The sourer, the better. So green crab apples particularly are ideal because of their sour flavour. And it's that sour flavour that feeds the liver as well and helps liver health. Now, also, they've discovered that apples are high in a particular flavonoid or plant pigment called quercetin, and it's anti-inflammatory, and it also helps reduce oxidative stress. So anything that helps reduce oxidative stress is something that helps stop you oxidizing and stop you going rusty, if you like, because we don't want to be oxidizing like a piece of rusty old iron. So just to look at apples and detoxification, because, is that one of the reasons why they keep the doctor away, that they help the body to detoxify? Well, just a thought back to traditional herbal medicine, which used to suggest apples to remedy constipation and stewed apples to support or assist diarrhea easing and gastroenteritis easing. Now, apples contain something called calcium D-glucaric acid. Excuse me, stumbling over this long name. And it's at its highest concentration again in green apples. And what calcium D-glucaric acid does is it increases something called glucuronidation. And glucuronidation is a detoxification pathway in the liver, a phase 2 one, that detoxifies natural and synthetic estrogens. Something that's really helpful when you consider the number of particularly synthetic estrogens that there are in the environment now. So the problem can be that if there are any pathogenic bacteria in the gut, they can produce an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase that blocks our estrogen detoxification process. But calcium D-glucaric acid inhibits beta-glucuronidase. So that's how another way that apples help, but also because they help increase glucuronidation. So not only inhibiting the bad guys, but supporting the good processes. And that's a little conclusion of apples today, which is it's quite possible that an apple a day does keep the doctor away, but keep them small, keep them sour, keep them green, and you've really got the makings of a good cure. Okay, look after you.